Hello learners, today we will be discussing dichotomy between reason and emotions. This is week 11 part 1. This is part of your BEDS 001 overview and perspectives of values. So let me start right away. What do we mean by dichotomy between reason and emotions? When we talk about dichotomy means the difference between or the line between reason and emotion. What are the difference between reason and emotion? So when we talk about dichotomy between reason and emotion, we have to talk about rationality. Rationality constitutes a core element in ethical behavior. Behavior that is characterized as irrational, incoherent or inconsistent cannot be called ethically desirable, worthwhile or good behavior. Mere rationality of behavior cannot be called sufficient criterion to define morality. There are certain human emotions like empathy, which means you feel for the person. You can place yourself in a person's position, in a person's place who has undergone some grief in his or her life, and also human emotions like sympathy, caring for others, loving them, devoid of which no behavior can be morally good even if it is supported by valid reasons. It will be quite apt to say that reason is an essential condition of morality, but it is certainly not a sufficient condition. There are certain human emotions like greed, selfishness, etc., which are direct antithesis of morally good behavior because they undermine the strength of reason and lead one to follow one's selfish interests. That is why we are told to control such emotions in order to act morally. There existed always a tension between intellectual and emotional aspects in human beings' life, especially in the moral context. For the most part, reason and emotion have been in conflict with each other as incompatible to the development of moral character. But this is also a fact that both reason and emotion constitute essential dimensions or domains of morality. There are two faces of a coin inseparable from each other. So when we talk about reason, we are talking about the intelligent aspect part of a human being's life. What are the various decisions a human being has to take, a man or woman has to take on the basis of rationality? What is the intellectual aspect? What is the reason behind a certain decision? And emotional aspect would mean at times you may take decision because you are emotionally overcome with happiness or grief. So when we talk about reason and emotion, certain decisions are taken on the basis of reasons and on the basis of emotion. So at times we say that decisions in life, very important decisions in life, should be taken with careful consideration for the consequences. So at times it is very important to take decision on the basis of the intellectual aspect or because you have valid reasons to take that particular decision, and taking decisions on the basis of your emotional aspect or your emotional state may not always be the right decision. No moral judgment can be said to be worthwhile unless it is rationally consistent and coherent. But without the element of caring for others, no action can be called moral. Development of reason, therefore, becomes the main concern of education. Accordingly, education should overcome as effectively as possible the tendencies of animal life dominated by passions or emotions within us. So, when we talk about decision taken because you have certain valid reasons behind it, but without the element of caring for others, when we take decisions without caring for others, without feeling the emotional aspect of others, then these actions cannot be called moral. The state of being a moral agent is the one in which the individual has come to know what is right. Socrates had also maintained that virtue is the knowledge of the good. According to Plato, virtue or morality is the culmination of the knowledge of right. Once one obtains this knowledge of the right, one cannot avoid being virtuous. Let me repeat, Socrates had also maintained that virtue is the knowledge of the good. According to Plato, virtue or morality is the culmination of the knowledge of right. Once one obtains this knowledge of the right, one cannot avoid being virtuous. On the other hand, reason, according to rationalists, is the supreme factor in morality. Passions and emotions are unfortunate appendix, that is, additional features of human life which need to be controlled, tamed, or subdued. Aristotle went to the extent of saying reason and intellectual contemplation to be truly human. Man's true happiness lies in engaging oneself in thinking activities of the highest order. So, when you talk about reason, reason according to rationalists is the supreme factor in morality. On the other hand, passions and emotions are unfortunate appendix, that is, additional features of human life which needs to be controlled, tamed, or subdued. So when you have a lot of emotions going through you, it could be emotions of anger, it could be emotions of hatred, it could be you being full of jealousy for others, then these emotions have to be controlled, it has to be subdued, because when you are overcome with these emotions, certain decisions that you make or certain decisions you have to take, may not be reasonable. They may be because you may not be in the right frame of mind. And on the other hand, when you take decision on the basis of valid reason, that is the time when you know about what are the consequences behind the decisions that you take. However, a question may be asked whether it would be right to break off such contemplation to save the life of a drowning man. Plato, however, recognized the conflict that arises between what we know to be right and what we recognize as pleasurable. According to the Christian theology, the Christian theology holds passions, emotions, or appetites as domain of Satan, which led Adam to fall from grace. The passions therefore need to be suppressed and tamed. So when we talk about the Christian theology, the passions out here would be the emotions that Adam went through, which has to be suppressed and tamed, because Adam was not able to control these emotions. He was not able to suppress and tame these emotions, which led to him falling from grace. Immanuel Kant believed that feelings and emotions are hindrances on the way of rational morality. According to him, man is unfortunately obstructed with feelings and emotions which check him from becoming a fully rational being. So when we talk about reason, Immanuel Kant believed that feelings and emotions are hindrances on the way of rational morality, which means that when you have emotions, when you have feelings, it obstructs your way, it creates hindrances on the way of your rational morality. So because of these emotions, because of these feelings, it obstructs a man from becoming a fully rational being. In order that man can behave the way shown to be right by application of reason, feelings and emotions need to be overcome. According to Kant, discovering right course of action is a rational activity. The natural inclinations, that is your feelings, your emotions, which are your natural inclinations, etc., merely serve to deflect one from acting on the right path shown by reason. In fact, morality may be committed with destruction of natural passions as well as with their preservation. Both reason and emotions are important for human beings. The gap between reason and emotions need to be bridged by what Hegel, a German philosopher, called the morality of love. So, when we talk about reasons and emotions in a human being's life, these two are very important aspect in a human being's life, because your actions, your way of life is controlled by emotions and reasons, and you cannot do away with your emotions because these are your natural inclinations, and you also cannot do away with reasons because valid reasons are help you go or help you create a path of morality. Reasons help you to know what would be the good consequences of taking certain decisions. So, when we talk about reason and emotion, both reasons and emotions are very important for human beings. So, how do we bridge the gap between reasons and emotions? So, according to Hegel, a German philosopher, he says that the bridge between reason and emotions, or the gap between reason and emotions, can be bridged by what is called the morality of love. Many people hold that moral knowledge cannot be attained by reason alone. For example, before making any moral judgment, we need to be fully conversant with the non-moral facts of the case. It is on an understanding of the total situations alone that right judgment and right action can be taken. If our moral judgment does not consider the situational reality, the action taken that is likely will be wrong. So, when we talk about certain actions, when we talk about certain decisions you make, your moral judgment, if it does not consider the situational reality, the action taken on that is likely to be wrong. So, one has to have an understanding of the situational reality so that the right judgment or the right action can be taken. We can find answer to moral questions only when we know how people behave and what they do in moral situations. The empiricists recognize the importance of emotions in moral behavior. According to them, moral belief and behavior are explicable only in terms of emotions people have or the way they feel. Accordingly, moral behavior is to be assessed in terms of social utility of what people feel to be right, of maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. Thus, there is a dichotomy between man's intellectual and his emotions, and a tangible solution to the problem is not there. So, when we talk about the empiricists, they recognize the importance of emotions in moral behavior. According to them, moral behavior is to be assessed in terms of social utility of what people feel to be right, of maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. Thus, there is a dichotomy between man's intellectual and his actions, and the tangible solution to the problem is not there. So, when we talk about the implications of dichotomy, when we talk about the implications of dichotomy between reason and emotions, the situation arising out of the conviction of divorce of intellectual for emotions may have serious implication in education. In fact, stressing the one and ignoring the other aspect of moral behavior in the curriculum of the child will deprive him of becoming a truly morally and educated person. For example, you are a teacher and you are teaching students in your class, let's say a particular subject, let's say history or biology, physics, chemistry, maths. Your class, your children are very intelligent. They have, they can give you very intellectually sound answers. But if the students in that particular class that you are teaching do not have what is called, moral values, if the children in your class are not, they don't have what is called teaching in values, then students will be deprived of being a truly morally and educated person. So it is very important to have an equal balance of reason as well as emotions. You need to be able to balance what is the intelligent aspect as well as what are the emotional aspect. When we talk about implications of dichotomy, implications of the dichotomy between reason and emotion, human personality, according to Benjamin Bloom, an American educational psychologist, consists of three dimensions, that is the cognitive, the affective and the psychomotor domains. Any educational program which does not take full account of any of the three domains will remain incomplete and therefore will not achieve the goals of education. So, very clearly, Benjamin Bloom, an American educational psychologist, says human personality consists of three dimensions, that is the cognitive, the affective and the psychomotor. So you have to have these three domains, that is cognitive, the affective and the psychomotor. If you do not have these three domains, then you will remain, the human personality will remain incomplete and therefore will not achieve the goals of educations. We must not forget that development of appropriate feelings, that is affective domain, is an integral part of educations, including moral education. It is not possible, even in theory, that one is educated even though he or she has not developed worthwhile attitudes, feelings and emotions, and he or she does not appreciate what is worth appreciating. It will be absurd to say that someone is educated but she loves nothing, is interested in nothing and is enthused by nothing. So when we talk about someone who is educated, someone who is intelligent, it would be very absurd to say that she or he loves nothing, is interested in nothing and is enthused by nothing, because if you are born as a human, if you have human personality, you have feelings, because these are your natural inclinations. To be educated is to have been brought up to care for certain things. To take a purely rationalist approach amounts denying that our pupils have feelings or individuality. It is to turn them into computers or robots, which means that if you deny that a particular person or your students or your class do not have feelings, or they are just concerned with rational behavior, or they are just concerned with reasonable behavior, it means that they are like computers, or you are turning them into computers or robots. So it is very important to know that to be educated is to have feelings, to have been brought up to care for certain things and feelings. So the worst effect of the divorce of intellectual from emotion, which means that if you have the implications of the dichotomy between reason and emotion, that is, if you divide or if you differentiate or if you separate the two, that is reason and emotion, the worst effect can be seen when one recommends suppression of emotions with the sole purpose of attaining universality, objectivity, and morality in moral behavior. In many schools where steps are taken for taming of emotions or passions, some of the agency in schools or in the society strongly recommend repression of feelings without being aware that such repression can ultimately lead to varieties of psychoneurosis or obsessive compulsive behaviors and extreme form of anxiety. So, if you separate intellectual, that is reason from emotion, and if you try to tame these emotions, or if you completely try to tame or subdue them, then one can see that a lot of time the students or people in such a situation where you are trying to suppress the feelings of emotions, it leads to a varieties of psychoneurosis or obsessive compulsive behaviors and extreme form of anxiety. Such repression on feelings and passion may develop psychosomatic disorders like hysteria, engendered feelings of guilt and shame. So we must not forget that characteristic disorders like alcoholism, sexual repression, psychopathic tendency, etc. may develop because of repressed feelings and desire. Another very dangerous effect of the implication of repressive devices on the part of parents, society or teachers in early childhood is the development of what is called human conduct extremely strong super ego. This occurs as a result of taboos of the culture. We should remember that development of conscious of what Freud called ego ideal is not the small voice of God, but rather it is developed by internalizing fear and other unpleasant experiences in the childhood. The development of ego ideal takes place through an unconscious process and therefore always have negative connotations. The emotions and feelings repressed in this process continue to affect our attitudes and behavior in unconscious and unrecognized manner. That is why in our later life we quite often are not able to explain our behaviors to others, even to ourselves. So when we talk about the dichotomy of reasons and emotion, we have to know how to balance feelings of emotions and feeling of reasons. So it is important that individual display reason as well as also reasonable behavior, as well as show compassion and caring for others. So it is important that both reasons and your emotions should be balanced in your life. So with today's lecture, I have covered what is the dichotomy between reason and emotions. So with this, I complete week 11 part 1. Thank you so much.